Welcome to this week's layout. I'm Anita with beandesigns.com. I'm here to help you create awesome digital scrapbook layouts by sharing my layouts with you. This is my 22nd layout of the planned 52 DigiScrap layouts in 52 weeks. I'm using GIMP, which is an open source free Photoshop alternative to creating digital scrapbook layouts. The most recent version of GIMP, which is what I'm using, is 2.10.20. You can see other tutorials that I've created on how I have set up GIMP to use with digital scrapbook layouts here on my channel. This week's layout contains several photos you can see here from the wedding ceremony that I'm going to place into the completed wedding album. It is the counterpart to next week's layout, which I will highlight next week. I have my papers and elements all lined up here ready for use on the layout. I have my new image, the 3600 by 3600 at 300 pixels per inch. I have already brought in most of my photos that I'm going to use. I have resized them and cropped them, and I'm going to show you how I did that. So most of them started as rectangles at a high pixel resolution. So I scaled each of them to 1200 pixels. And then I cropped that photo into a square, 1200 by 1200, 1200 wide by 1200 tall. And then I can use my left click and I can maneuver the highlighted portion. Just click in the cropped area and voila, you get your size. So I just arranged them in a loose circle, gently overlapping them and taking note of my guidelines, the marking the 1/2 inch that I want to make sure that I stay within so that I can allow for the printing. Next, I want to take a look at the papers and elements for the layout. You see here I have two papers. So I have one paper that I'm going to use as the main background layer. And I have a second paper which I'm going to use as a large mat. So I'm going to reorder my layers to put those at the bottom of the layout. And I'm going to use the crop tool once again on the matte paper, and I'm going to cut a piece that is 3600 pixels tall, so it encompasses the entire up and down area, and I want it to be 2800 pixels wide. Once I've chosen my size, I click on inside the highlighted area, and that removes the outer portion. Can use my move tool now to look at my boundaries. I have here 100, 200, 350, 100, 200, 300. So I just move it just a little bit to line that up into the center of my layout. I have my background paper and my mat. So let's pull in the bead string. So we're going to drag and drop the bead string onto our layout. Our end result is going to have two of these bead strings. So let's go ahead and rotate the string. So we click on that layer with the rotate tool active, and we can choose to rotate it at 90 degrees and activate that action. And we can now use our move tool to maneuver it over to the left. Let's zoom out, and I want to show you. You can see that the creator of this element that I'm using actually made it a tad bit longer than the 36 and 600 pixels so that I would be able to use it at a diagonal if I wanted to on my layout. I'm not going to, but I could. So that does give me the ability to move. I can move this down if I find that it would be better at any location where it would be better. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate a copy of this so that we can have one on each side, but I don't want them to be exactly the same. Go to my tools over here and I right click and I get my options. Could also do Shift F, and opening your tool options, you can see that you can flip horizontal or vertical. So I want to flip vertical, and then I just click inside the active layer portion, and then I can move exactly where I want these to be. So let's just give it a general idea here. This gives us quite a few beats on each side. Now let's get rid of the extra parts. So this layer is active. I'm going to go to layer, and I'm going to layer to image size, and this is going to cut away anything that's outside the layer, the image boundary. Layer to image size. So now it is all within the image boundary. Nothing is exceeding beyond it. Nothing is extending beyond the image boundary. Moving down on our elements, let's go ahead and bring in a copy of each flower that we're going to use on our layout. We have the pink flower, the blue flower, the white flower, and then the lace piece, and the center for the blue flower. So we have one copy of each item on our layout now. And when I brought those in, they ended up below the photos. So let's just go ahead and drag them, relayer them to be on top. So we have the bead string just on top of the photo mat below the photos. Use our move tool. This center here is going to be in the center of the blue flower. This lace piece needs to be a tad bit smaller. So once again, we can right click on our transform tools and then change it to scale. Click on the lace and just drag it to the size we want. Use the move tool now to put it gently in the center. And at this point, I'm okay with a little bit of these elements sticking beyond this 1/2 inch mark. And so this is the blue flower, and this is its center. So you see all of these are going to need to be resized. So we're going to put a pink flower here, here, and 3 or 4 here. So with that layer active, we're going to duplicate it multiple times. And then the blue flower, we're going to multiply that several times. And the white flower, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll take care of the blue center in just a minute. I'm going to resize and maneuver each of the flowers into the area where I want them finally. I see it would have been simpler if I had resized these before I duplicated them, but I did not. I see that I have my lace piece on top of the flowers, so I reordered that on the layer palette to put the lace behind each of the flowers. I'm going to size the white flowers, size the blue flowers. I try to put my elements, my clusters of elements. First of all, try to make the clusters odd numbers, 3, 5, and then put them in clusters kind of in a triangle of sorts, like in a group of 3 on the page. So you'll see I have my cluster on the top left, my cluster over mid right, and then a cluster at the bottom. So it's kind of like a triangle. And then along the bottom, do what's pleasing with the 3 different kinds of flowers. And reordering the flowers so that sometimes the pink flower is on top, sometimes it's on the bottom, just to give a pleasing look. I do see that I've placed these items pretty close to the edge on the bottom, so I'll need to move those up so that they won't have the potential of disappearing during the printing process. Once I have the flowers sized and in place, I can work on now adding the dimension to our layout. I'm going to start by duplicating the blue main layer. I'm going to choose a rectangular, a feathered and rounded corner rectangular portion on that duplicated layer. I'm going to delete that area. Then I'm going to add a multiply mode to that deleted portion. I did not have to add an alpha channel to that layer because I have set that in my preferences for GIMP to add an alpha layer automatically when I bring that item into my GIMP. You can see my video on how to do that on my channel. Let's duplicate the matte layer twice. So on this first one, I'm going to delete a section and add a multiply mode to it for the top and the bottom of the layer. And then I'm going to reduce the opacity on that just a little bit. Then on this second layer, this second duplicated layer, I'm going to alpha to selection, select feather 25 and shrink by 10. Then I'm going to delete that selected area and add a multiply mode just to give it a boundary, a little bit of edge to the outer edge of that mat. I'll go in and add shadows to all of the items as I work up the layer palette. I'll add inking to the edges of all my photos. And in the end, our end result will be a beautiful layout to add in our wedding album. Once I've finished the layout, I will save it as an XCF native GIMP file. I will save it as the high resolution JPEG file so that I can print it. And I will save it in a reduced resolution of 72 pixels per inch so that I can share it on social media without clogging up everyone's computers when they open up the file. In support of your journey, as you preserve your memories for future generations, I have created and will provide to you templates of all my layouts. They're available over on the website www.beandesigns.com. Check it out there to see what you need to do to be able to get those. I will leave information in the description box of this video regarding the kits that I used when I'm creating this layout. I hope that you enjoyed this video because I enjoyed creating it. And check out my channel for other layout videos as well as tutorials on using GIMP and creating your digital scrapbook layouts. Keep on preserving memories for your future generations through your digital scrapbooking, and I'll see you next week.